name's Sonia and this is my channel, See It Then, See It Now. Every year I like to create a special unique gift for some of my friends and family members. Last year I created them all as special unique bauble. The year before I did some little glass candle holders, and this year I really wanted to challenge myself, so I asked a few of them to give me a piece of their recycling, and it really was a challenge. There was a couple of pieces where I was like, I really don't know what I'm going to do with this. Anyway, that said, I did come up with something for each of them, and this is the first one, which was a coffee jar, so let's jump in and see what I did with it. Once I had removed the label on this, I found that the glass was very distorted, so covering the glass was the only way to go. When painting glass, I found that using a sponge to apply the paint gives you a more even finish, so I used a very specialised technique of slapping the paint on with a brush and then smoothing it out and dabbing it with a sponge. I have covered decoupaging with a napkin in other videos, so I'm not going to go into lots of detail, but to summarise, you need to separate the layers and only use the top layer. If you tear the edges of the napkin, you will get a more blended look where the napkin overlaps than you will if you leave the napkin with straight edges. If you start in the centre of the design and work out to the edges, it will help avoid creasing and bubbles. Use a sponge or a piece of plastic to smooth and even out the napkin onto your surface, and once the napkin is wet, do not touch it. The napkin will stick to your fingers and it will lift and tear. If you want a more in-depth look on how to decoupage, then I did make a 3-parter on decoupaging, and this shows how you can use different papers on different surfaces, and it covers the pros and cons of each. I'll link the first video in the eye. As I mentioned earlier, you can see here I'm using the plastic to smooth out the surface of the napkin without it sticking to my fingers. After the napkin was fully dried, I gave it a light sand and then sealed the whole thing with a coat of dishwasher safe matte Podge, just because it gives a more glossy finish than the matte Podge, that's easy for you to say, and not because I had any intentions of putting this in a dishwasher. I decided to pop a knob onto the lid, and I've got loads of these knobs what came off an old dresser. So I painted it with a few different browns until I was happy with the colour. I've not used texture paste this way before, but I put it in a plastic bag, cut the corner off and piped it out to mimic snow on various areas on the design. Now, once I'd got over wanting it to look perfect and justified it all in my head that snow's not perfect, I actually really enjoyed doing this bit. It was fun just to have a play around with it, and if one bit didn't go right, then it was fine because you can just scrape it off, give it a wipe over and then just redo it. So yeah, it was good. Once I got into it, I actually really enjoyed this bit. When I'd got a section done and I was happy with it, I just sprinkled on some iridescent glitter and shook off the excess. In the hope that E6000 will be strong enough to keep the knob on the lid, I glued it in place, making sure I had it in the centre, and then I just popped some tape over just to keep it in place until the glue dried. These bits of lace make the top of the jar look pretty, and I liked how it softened the space at the bottom of the knob, so I glued them on with hot glue, and this completed the jar. This is a Christmas present, so I decided to put a box of my friend's favourite jockeys in there, so a label was next. Taking a wooden label, I glued Chocolate Lover on one side and the same napkin design as the jar on the other side. As always, once it was dry, I sealed it with a coat of Mod Podge. But I seem to have lost the footage. Having said that, you've seen me seal with Mod Podge before. Drilling a hole for the string to go through so the label could be tied to the jar was next. The edges of the label looked unfinished, so I started by gluing some jute string all around the edges. I really liked how the jute string was looking around the edges, so I decided to continue it onto the front, and I continued to glue it around the edge until I'd covered the space where the paper label finished, so you couldn't see the end of the paper label. To make a bow, I took a small piece of ribbon, I made 2 loops, one in each side, and I glued it in the centre. To finish off the label and make it look extra pretty, I glued on the little bow and a couple of little roses. All I had left to do now was tie the label to the jar and put the chockies in the jar without pinching any. Okay, let's have a reminder and see it then. And let's see it now. That's it for this one, guys. I absolutely love how this turned out, and I especially love the fact that it's no longer headed for the recycle bin. but I'd love to know what you think, so do leave me a comment, hit that like button as well. I do have some more Christmas crafts coming, so make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I appreciate you, each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.